What's up, Gabe?
Oh, hey, Ian. Hey, everybody. It's Wednesday. Well, not, well, yeah, it's Wednesday,
Is
and
it?
we're
Is
here
it?
with
Are
a
we
new
sure?
episode. It is. I was just, leaning toward the fact that we haven't really stuck to our weekly schedule as of late, but, things happen. But we're here, we're live, and we're here with a new episode. We're ready to rock and roll. It's blank as a fart. Thanks
Hmm.
for joining us. I'm Gabe. That's Ian. We're going to watch us some Twin Peaks, and we want you.
To take a shit on the internet? What happened, Gabe? It just wasn't meant to be. What happened? There you are.
What happened there?
You took a shit. A
I
fat.
I took a shit. You took a shit first.
No, I've been going.
We lost you. I lost you on the camera.
It must be
Well,
your. It's
maybe it
your
was my
connection.
phone.
You froze. I'm still streaming, and mine thinks excellent connection. So I'm guessing your internet killed me.
Could be. Or it was just reflecting my brain waves, which are obviously scrambled already. Yeah, so we took a week off, but we're here. We're ready to start the final four episodes of the original series. We are building towards a big conclusion with a big pageant, but it's going to be more than just that. We promise.
Wait. This was an episode? I thought this was just a collection of behind the scenes footage, like just deleted scenes.
Kind of felt like that, didn't it? Although there's a fair amount of exposition that we get through here. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we dig in. I was just told recently that my Aunt Linda is a regular listener slash viewer of the show.
Oh,
So I just wanted to give her a quick shout out. I know she's at home recovering from a recent medical procedure. So, Aunt Linda, I wanted to wish you all the best and thank you for supporting the show. We love you and we hope you heal up soon. And also give my love to Uncle Don. We
yeah.
hope you guys are listening and enjoying.
Yeah, thanks for watching.
Yeah.
Super cool.
Yeah. I honestly never would have pegged my Aunt Linda for a Twin Peaks fan, but maybe we converted her.
Or she's just watching you.
Or she's just watching me. Either way, we love that you're tuning in.
Yeah, you go to that YouTube. Oh, you can watch us on Spotify, obviously, but you can go to that YouTube on your YouTube app on your smart TV, and you can watch us on the big screen, just there in your
That's
living
right.
room.
That's right. You can watch any one of our episodes on the YouTube app.
Yeah.
You can listen to any one of them on Spotify, Audible, iTunes, wherever you like them. They're there. Just search for Blank as a Fart. We managed to land a unique name in the podcast world. That's pretty rare in this day and age.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. All right. So, we ready to dive into it?
I suppose so.
Unless you got anything else to add on the introductory tip?
No.
No. I get the feeling you don't have many notes for this episode either, do you?
This episode is just it kind of follows along the lines of the last one. It's well made. Just
It's utilitarian.
A series of stuff that
I mean, there's some interesting stuff in here that we don't really
there is
see
some
in-
bizarre stuff, but I just don't know if
Right.
it's really that important to the overall.
Hard to say in a Lynch project, isn't it? Well, let's get into some of that stuff, shall we?
Let's do it.
This week, we start with the law enforcement team returning to Owl Cave for further investigation, where they find what Wyndham Earl's machinations at the end of last week have uncovered. The wall has fallen away from part of the cave, exposing a much larger petroglyph. Hawk manages to spot Earl's tracks in the dirt, and Cooper asks Andy to make a copy of the petroglyph and to get Major Briggs on the phone, because if Earl wants to know about the Black Lodge, bad things are afoot.
This is great because, Coop walks in and says, "Oh, it looks like someone's done our work for us." It's like, no shit, motherfucker. If you guys had done your actual police work to begin with.
They were past donut time.
Anyway,
Got to keep the double R in business.
gotta use this plot device to get the guy to do the thing to make
You
the
know.
plot go forward.
That's how
Anyway,
it works.
I guess. I guess.
Speaking of Earl, we fade to him with his pipe in hand as he regales us with a verbose and poetic tale of the place known as the White Lodge. His description of this place of goodness is peppered with obvious disdain, such as references to, quote, virtue's sour smell. Which I thought that was an interesting line from a villain. I mean, he gets some good material to chew on, but it's melodramatic. But I mean, he has fun with it. You can tell.
I
But yeah, you don't. I
I
mean,
just I don't really buy him as a villain. I guess there's something about, or just his betrayal of this character. I don't know. It's just goofy character. As I don't. He does some sadistic, weird ass shit, but it just is. I don't know. He's not very menacing.
yeah,
He's
these
never
more
menacing.
recent episodes, yeah, there's not. You don't get the same amount of menace that you got to him in those first couple episodes that he showed up in. And it's given that I don't necessarily trust my memories of this character at this point, it's hard for me to say whether that improves or not. There's one big scene in particular that I can't bring up just yet. You'll have to wait a couple weeks for it, but it was out of nowhere and it really ramped up the creep factor. But it's complicated to explain that at this point.
No worries.
Um,
I'm sure
so
I
I'll
won't miss
stop
it.
trying. You won't. It's pretty obvious. As Earl spins a similar yarn about the Black Lodge, which he describes as a place of unimaginable power, we see that we are not his only audience. As the camera pans across the room, a raptly attentive, or maybe just catatonic, Leo is seated on the floor. Following the camera further to the right, perched at a vintage school desk, is a rock and roll youth. Adorned in spiked leather, he seems amused by Earl's stories, but is distraught at the fact that the beer and party promised to him have not yet materialized. Earl counsels patience while the camera continues its movement, panning across the table, loaded with tools and paintbrushes, before coming to rest on a computer screen, which displays the same petroglyph from Owl Cave. Did you recognize the rock and roll youth when you first spotted him, or did you have to wait for the
Oh, I
credits?
knew who he was right away.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like, oh hey, this let's you're in a quality show when Ted Raimi shows up. Let's get some Xena or some fucking whatever. I mean,
I never watched Xena, so pretty much the only thing I
Or
remember Ted
Hercules,
Raimi
or
from is
was he in
the Sam
Sequest?
Raimi Spider-Man films.
Was
Oh, he was in Sequest,
I mean,
wasn't he?
he's been in a lot of fucking shit
I
television.
totally
dude.
forgot about that.
Just like lending his, yeah. Anyway,
No, yeah, my biggest memories are of him as Jonah's assistant in Spider-Man, who I don't think do they even give that character a name? I don't remember what it is if he has one. But that's Ted Raimi as I remember him. Here he's vamping it up, but
you didn't watch
I think
Xena, Warrior Princess,
No, I was not a big Xena guy.
or Hercules?
That was time. No, the syndicated stuff. I was either Star Trek or wrestling for me. So
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm pretty well aware of the acting stylings of the young Ted Raimi on these.
oh yeah,
those shows.
they're a family of camp. They are, but we love them for it.
Anyway,
That's why they've made it for as far as they have. I gotta look. I haven't seen him lately. I wonder what he's up to. Maybe he's more into producing these days.
maybe.
Next up, we see Pete seated at his dining room table, practicing his chess and plagiarizing poetry, which he rewrites to memorialize Josie. Catherine rudely gets her husband's attention to enlist his help opening the puzzle box. The impatience is very apparent on her face as he absent-mindedly rambles on about Guam and the Doodlebury twins, before he tells her it could take years to figure out how to open the box properly.
Years.
Years. Jack Nance. More scenery chewing here. We haven't talked much about him in this show, have we?
Not so much.
Not so much. He doesn't get a lot of opportunities to shine. I think he might be one of the most believable characters in this show, to be honest with you.
Maybe, I don't know.
I've known guys like him in my day.
He's a little creepy.
Like I said, realistic.
I suppose. I suppose. I don't know. A lot of the guys I feel like have the same energy going on. You know, the dude playing Wyndham Earl, Pete, Donna's dad, Doctor. They all are kind of the same dude, but they're different dudes. But they all seem kind of the same. I don't know what it is.
What is the quality that they share?
Well,
Their age?
age, they all kind of look the same, but not. But kind of the same kind of dudes, shaped the same kind of way. I don't know.
It makes me
They all kind
curious.
of act kindly. They act kind of kindly the same way, even though they are different.
When they're acting kind. Yeah.
Well, no, but like even they just kind of the way they just have that same kind. Their voice has that same kind of tone. I don't know. Anyway,
They each have a little bit of a smoker's rasp to them, I guess you would say. I'm sure they all had that habit at some point, given the era. It makes you wonder. I'd kind of like to go back. I would estimate that Kenneth Wells was probably late 40s, early 50s when he filmed Twin Peaks, would be my guess. I want to say Warren Frost would have been a bit older than that, maybe mid 50s. But, when you kind of look at how people that age were depicted back then versus how we see them now being our age,
right.
it's a very, very different perspective.
I also think that Lynch. Well, the idea of Lynch, not necessarily this show is still that, but he has this kind of idealized ideas of old men.
Yes.
Anyway,
The fatherly figure. Yeah.
right.
He definitely yeah, I mean, what ooh. I mean, I wouldn't deny that you could call Lynch a feminist as well, but there's an awful lot of women being exploited by men who they're supposed to be able to trust
Oh,
in
100%.
his work.
Even in this
And
this
again, that's
episode.
just yeah, this episode as well. Like the interaction we'll talk about later between, oh, actually, that's coming up right now if we want to just dive into that before
Sure.
a discussion of feminism themes. We're off to the double R, where we get a quick peek at Annie hard at work before moving to a booth where Bobby and Shelley are discussing the future. After a whole month of trying, Bobby has finally discovered the secret to quick and easy success. Beautiful people get whatever they want.
Mm.
Naturally, he plans to take advantage of Shelley's beauty, not his own, assuming that their key to life on Easy Street is her winning the Miss Twin Peaks pageant. She rightfully laughs off this idea, but Bobby gets a little more forceful about it, grabbing her by the arm and telling her, quote, Bobby's in charge. You understand?
Yeah.
This is an approach that Shelley clearly does not appreciate, giving Bobby a death glare as she snatches the flyer out of his hands and returns to work. Yeah, we see Shelley get treated very differently by two very different people
Right.
in this episode, so maybe we'll save discussion of that for a little later.
But still odd. Anyway, maybe not.
I mean, this is, this is coming down a step from Leo, at least, right?
True.
But this isn't, Bobby never seemed really I don't know. I'm not going to say this is out of character for Bobby because it's obviously not, but it seemed like he was softening at least a little bit in previous episodes, and it's weird to see him just kind of revert back to asshole mode every now and again. Over to the window booth where Mayor Milford and his blushing bride are enjoying a meal. Lana has a favor to ask of her new hubby. She wants to win the Miss Twin Peaks pageant. Dwayne touts his speech writing abilities and offers to coach her night and day. But Lana clarifies that she wants Dwayne to cheat and ensure that she wins. He initially seems troubled by the idea, but it doesn't appear as though it will take much convincing on Lana's part. Much convincing on Lana's part.
I don't really have anything to say about this.
Nothing to add about this one? No?
I don't what I just find all of this very pointless. This
No
whole
interest in the mayor and his wife, huh?
it is funny how like we get this like trifecta of relationship goulash in the double R here.
In the double R, yeah.
It's just like, oh, we go from one
Relationship goulash.
to another one. It's just like, okay. Anyway, I'll let you continue to get to the next course of goulash.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we're not doing. Do we do unbroken? We don't do unbroken
No,
shots,
it's
but
not
we
unbroken.
do.
It just
Like we
shifts.
when we segue from one segment to another, that is an unbroken camera shot. Like there's the shot of Shelley walks off with the flyer and the camera pans
Sure.
over to the other table, and then we get a couple of back and forths with the mayor and Lana.
Mm-hmm.
But then we get the long shot that pans up to Cooper again. I kind of like that technique. It makes it feel very natural, very flowing. So it works for me. I mean, like you said, it's nothing real flashy, but I don't think this was something we saw a lot of in the '90s, the very early '90s. So
Yeah, I don't think so. It's just
I give
funny
it
to me.
credit for that.
I mean, they've done more creative things with the double R, but um, I just think it was funny that they're all kind of dealing with their relationships. It's less. I don't know. It's just funny that we had
Yeah,
three of the same things basically.
yeah, very different tones to each of these conversations, though. We have the dominant male, and then the dominant female, and then the equals.
Right.
As Cooper enters the diner, he's there to buy coffee and donuts for the boys, but he's on another mission as well. It's time to finally take the plunge and ask Annie out on a date, specifically a nature study. She happily agrees, and they demonstrate some equal levels of awkwardness in the ensuing conversation regarding the tingling sensation that Cooper gets when he talks to her. That's in his toes, you perverts. She heads back to prep
And his stomach.
order.
And his stomach.
Oh, yes, and his stomach.
Come on now.
And nowhere else.
Nowhere.
Nowhere. She heads back to prep his order, and Shelley comes up to the register to ring up Bobby's ticket. Bobby himself heads out the door, reminding her that she's beautiful and managing somehow to make it sound shitty in the process.
Mm-hmm.
Shelley mockingly recites the last couple lines of Earl's poem aloud to herself, which instantly catches Cooper's attention, his mood becoming very serious. He obviously recognizes it. Cooper asks where Shelley heard it. She explains the situation with her, Donna, and Audrey, and allows Cooper to take his piece of the poem. Again, he's just like really stern with Shelley about this, like not even a please when he asks for it. He's just like, I need to keep this. I'm just like, wow, man.
Give it to me.
You have some manners here. I mean, Shelley's been nothing but cool with you, dude.
Listen, you're beautiful. Just give me the poem.
Yeah, just hand it over, damn it.
But she also doesn't seem to really give a shit. So
No, yeah, she doesn't seem bothered by it, but I don't know. It irritates me for some reason. It doesn't seem right. As like polite and kind as Cooper is to everybody else, this just seems it feels like he's singling her out for some reason. Anyway, maybe I'm reading too much into that because I'm a huge Shelley fan.
it's just drama. And
It's just drama.
He has to make it.
And he's rattled because he knows it's Earl.
Wyndham Earl trying to
creeping
kill
in.
Shelley.
And he talks about this in the next scene, so we'll get into more of that. Annie comes back with the order, but Cooper's a little distracted, and she does have to remind him on his way out the door to provide details for the date. His mood instantly does brighten, and Annie exchange smiles before he leaves. Shelley exchanges a knowing look with Annie as the two ladies get back to work before a commercial break.
Yep.
I do like, Shelley and Annie being friendly. I like that. They've got a good interaction between the two of them, I think.
Sure. Heather Graham still just looks awkward as fuck.
And that's in character. That's how Annie is supposed to be at this point. But, I really think Shelley kind of comes into her own in these last few episodes here. Like when she's, cracking jokes with Bobby about like, know any senators I could marry and stuff like that. Like she nails the right sarcastic tones and She's got a really good expressive face that she knows how to work. And yeah, I think she's just, when she gets room to work, she does amazing stuff. After the commercial break, we move to Harry's office, where Cooper is explaining the situation with the poem and his belief that Earl was the one who delivered the pieces to the girls. Cooper recites the poem, which brings a smile to Harry's face. But when Cooper mentions that it was a poem that he'd sent to Caroline, Harry's face quickly turns serious. That was another just small amount of very good acting that I took note of from Michael Onkean right there. Like you can see his mood shift with just like a little bit of movement. Really, really well done. That struck me as very good. Cooper mentions that Earl takes perverse pleasure in insinuating himself into innocent lives. A lot of I's in that sentence. Harry suggests that they talk to the girls ASAP as Hawk enters with Donna's piece of the poem, but with Audrey in Seattle, they won't get her piece until she returns. He also mentions that Major Briggs has arrived. Cooper examines the two pieces of the poem together and asks Hawk to bring him Leo's arrest record. Something in the handwriting?
No way, because we haven't seen that.
Yeah, Cooper's eagle eye for detail. I like how they came back to it, though. We haven't seen him use that for a while. We haven't seen Cooper investigate, really, anything. He's just kind of been, oh, it's Wyndham Earl. What do we do?
Oh, right.
The Major is enjoying a coffee.
So much so, fact, though, I'll just quickly say this. We haven't really investigated that they went to a cave, saw the cave, chose not to investigate it then, but come back later and investigate it after it had already been tainted by another person.
Right.
So clearly his investigation skills are rusty.
Or he's just not, willing to put in that time off the clock that you need to do to be a good agent.
I guess so.
What is he technically on assignment? Oh, I guess it's the Earl situation. That's what the FBI has him there for. Blah, 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 blah. Where did we go? Oh, the Major is enjoying a coffee in the conference room with Andy, who is sketching out the petroglyph on the big chalkboard. The Major offers a small correction to Andy's sketch, but before he could answer Andy's question as to how he could possibly know that, Cooper enters to ask for the Major's help. He explains how the three investigations, the disappearance of Leo, the appearance of Wyndham Earl, and the discovery of the petroglyphs in Owl Cave, are all about to converge. He needs the mayor's help to find out anything he can about Earl's work on Project Blue Book.
Mm-hmm.
There are some practical and moral quandaries regarding the Major's access to these materials, but he does want to know if this knowledge would help prevent further loss of life. When Cooper answers in the affirmative, the Major asks if the sketch on the chalkboard is indeed the petroglyph that Cooper mentioned, confessing that he has seen it before in a dream. The Major's gaze appears drawn toward the center of the glyph, where we see the inverted owl symbol surrounded by fire, next to the planetary symbol for Jupiter.
I think he said he thinks he saw it in a dream. He's not 100% sure where he saw it.
Or maybe somewhere. Yeah, he's not clear about it, but his initial instinct is to say a dream.
Right.
But this could have been something he saw during his disappearance when he believes he was taken to the lodge. We're given a glimpse of what might be this dream or vision or whatever. The screen whites out, and we see a silhouette of a hooded and cloaked figure. The white lines of the glyph still visible in their black shape.
Like
as the camera zooms in on the figure's head, the blackness is replaced with a blanket of stars. An owl flies suddenly into view, and the whole vision explodes into flames. The reverie ends, and the Major agrees to help Cooper. Hawk enters with Leo's file. Good work, Hawk.
Yeah, man. Getting that file, I was like,
hey, yeah,
good job.
Way to open up that drawer. It's got a button on it that locks. Kind of tricky sometimes, I know, but I bet he didn't even need both hands to do it. Cooper uses the handwriting sample inside to confirm his suspicion that Leo transcribed the poem.
Good job.
Lots of tight close-ups this week. This scene begins with one on Dick's bandaged nose, which he is touching gingerly as Ben Horn enters the lobby from the elevator. Dick approaches him to seek Audrey's help regarding the wine tasting fundraiser event they will be holding that evening. But Ben informs him that Audrey is in Seattle on business. Continuing to try and be a good man, Ben actually asks after Dick's health and offers to cover any medical expenses he incurred as a result of the weasel incident. Dick is grateful, but also shrewd, and pushes for a little extra workers' comp. Ben mulls it over, but ultimately agrees, which seems to have saved him from a lawsuit. Slightly irritated, Ben staves off his evil urges with a chomp of his carrot. Quote, "Sometimes the urge to do bad is overwhelming."
Mm-hmm.
What do you think of this one?
Um,
Again, no notes.
What is the point of this?
Just you don't care?
I guess we're still. I don't know.
I mean, I don't know. It
What
does
is it?
feel
Wine
a lot
testing.
more like...
Wine tasting. Like, is
What's that?
the wine taste? It's just it leads into more comedy of errors, but doesn't. It's not really going to go anywhere. It kind of showcases Ben Horn trying to be good.
Yeah, and Dick just being annoying.
Asshole annoyance, yeah. But like,
Yeah, it kind of feels like a little bit of a showcase for him. I feel bad that the actor's name escapes me at this point. But yeah, it just feels like, this is somebody that Lynch just loves watching work. So he wrote as much stuff for him as he could. Or maybe it's Frost, or, I'm going to say it's Lynch that favors him, because this is the guy he took along with him when they ended up doing On the Air, which was essentially their take on the Dick Van Dyke Show, pretty much.
Interesting.
I still haven't figured out a way to watch that, but it might be fun to tack that onto the end of the podcast or something. Meanwhile, it is party time at Wyndham Earl's cabin as he cracks open a beer and hands it to Leo, who takes it over to the rock and roller to pour it in his mouth. The dude can't do it himself because he's encased in a frame of wood and chicken wire, to which Earl is applying paper mache.
Oh, sorry. Never mind. You got it.
Give me a minute to finish my sentence.
Get it out.
Dude.
It's like, what the fuck is going on?
I'm trying to give our listeners a visual image, all right?
All right.
I like to use picaresque language.
Sorry. I was like, what the fuck's going on here?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it takes you don't really get to see until the end, but I mean, I knew already, so I got impatient about it. He continues to encourage the youth by telling him that he's about to become a part of something bigger than himself, which the young man assumes to be some sort of parade. When he asks how he gets out of this little contraption, Earl's response is a simple, "You don't." He tells him this as he pulls back the firing mechanism on a handheld crossbow and asks Leo to bring him an arrow. Leo freezes and Dude Bro laughs it off, believing it to be a joke. Earl asks again, and Leo actually refuses.
God,
The word
drunk,
no.
How drunk are you tonight, Gabe?
This is my first drink. I'm just trying to move too fast, I guess.
Oh, it's all right.
Leo actually refuses, saying the word no out loud.
Yeah. Leo trying to have a backbone.
Earl activates the shock collar, forcing Leo to comply. Don't zap the geek. Is that what he calls it? Yeah, don't zap the geek. The kid's getting more and more nervous as Earl loads the arrow into the crossbow, but Earl soothes him with his hypnotic prose, discussing the greatest mystery that man looks to solve. What happens after we die? He tells the kid how lucky he is because he gets to find out right now. Several smash cuts to the arrow firing, the arrow embedded in the sculpture, the look of horror on Leo's face, and the dead face of the rock and roll youth, blood streaming out of the mouth. This was some pretty ham-fisted technique right here.
Yeah.
Pretty outdated in this day and age. This is low-budget stuff.
I like how, because it was all done so quick, would he even have blood coming out of his mouth yet? It
really did look more like Chef Boyardee or something.
For sure.
Especially in 4K. But yeah, it was all very sudden, and I mean, you do that for shock value. Just go back and watch the original Alien and the cuts of the facehugger running around.
Ted Raimi, what an actor.
Or Ted didn't even make it out of the episode. Let's go over to the Roadhouse for a meeting of the Rules and Regulations Committee for the pageant. This consists of Mayor Milford, Doc Hayward, and Pete Martell, the creepiest, oldest, whitest men in town.
Teenagers at a bar again.
Right?
Just hanging out.
But this is bar as auditorium, which we've seen before.
Oh, yeah, courtroom.
A close cousin to bar as courtroom, yeah. Where do they have their dinner theater in Twin Peaks, I wonder? That's got to be at the Roadhouse, too, right? That's the only stage in the town.
Probably.
First order of business is that Ben Horn has asked to address the committee. He makes a decent, empowering speech about feminism before the mayor encourages him to get to the point, which is, Ben suggests that the theme of this year's speeches should be forest conservation. Ben rebuffs Pete's implication that this has something to do with his opposition of the Ghostwood development, and the committee agrees to take the idea under advisement. Quoth the mayor, the idea has merit. The applicants for the pageant are all present as well. Donna, Shelley, and Bobby are all seated together at a table where Ben stops off to remind Bobby to pick up the dry cleaning and share a very modern handshake. Ben deliberately avoids Donna's gaze as he makes his way out. The committee calls up the first applicant, who just happens to be Lana. As she greets her husband, the mayor, with a kiss, Bobby astutely observes that a fix might be in the works. Shelley gets a little panicky as she's nervous about public speaking. Bobby nominates himself to write her speech, but this does not reassure her. However, a friendly pat on the arm and some words of affirmation from Donna do.
Something we kind of forgot to mention is when Horn leaves and Donna, the kind of the way he walks across her and the way she just looks like she's scowling because of all that.
She also looks like she's crying a little bit.
A little bit too.
Her eyes are a little watery. Yeah.
So like all that's going, whatever that is going on about that, but there is that scene that happened.
Yeah, and when he almost looks over his shoulder as he walks out the door.
Right.
Like those scenes in Arrested Development with Buster and Oscar.
It.
Never watched it? Oh, you're missing out. It's good stuff.
It's right here.
The first 2 seasons, anyway. Blah, 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 blah. Enter Nadine with Mike in tow. Ooh, here's one of Ian's favorite subplots.
Mike and Bobby get to hang out together again.
Yeah, we haven't seen that in a while. Nadine grabs an application and a seat next to Shelley and Donna while Bobby hauls Mike off for some locker room talk by the pinball tables. Bobby is concerned, believing Mike's, quote, interest in fossils to be a little scary. But Mike assures Bobby that the combination of, again, quoting, sexual maturity and superhuman strength can yield some positive results. So positive, in fact, that Bobby's shout of surprise at their description draws the attention of the entire room. He apologizes and goes off to play some pinball while Mike and Nadine exchange sexy winks at each other from across the room.
Teenager. Older lady.
17-year age gap is what we're talking here, right? What's the rule? 10 plus half? Which again is like a very patriarchal rule, going away with that. Although, I got no problems with women turning the tables on that. Doesn't Cher famously date guys that are like 40 years younger than she is?
Sure, but like he's in high school. I just feel like
that's true.
I feel like it's
we never have established whether Mike is legally still a minor or not.
Right.
We will proceed under the assumption that he is. For legal purposes, naturally.
Anyway.
For some reason, we get a brief slow-mo shot of flashlights dancing over the petroglyph in the cave, fading into a close-up of Earl with the emptied crossbow in his hand. And then, suddenly, we're having coffee with Catherine and Harry. The poor, dumb, love-struck sheriff is still trying to gain some closure from his lover's death, and he's hoping to glean whatever he can about Josie's real motivations from Catherine, who seemed to know her better than just about anybody. Catherine explains that Josie was a bit of a chameleon out of necessity for survival. She would just kind of show people whatever they wanted to see from her in order to get what she needed from them. Catherine claims that in spite of everything, she finds it difficult to hate Josie, to which Truman only responds with a dim-witted, "Well, she was so beautiful."
A lot of beautiful in this episode.
Yeah, there is. There is. I mean, we are coming up on a pageant, so a lot of emphasis on that.
I mean, beautiful is the key to getting everything. So
Beautiful is the key to television, you know?
hmm.
Catherine, doing her best to take advantage of the poor dope, decides to enlist Truman's help in trying to open the puzzle box, convincing him that it might benefit both of them somehow. As the two examine the box, Pete returns home from the roadhouse, extolling the virtues of this year's pageant contestants. As he takes the box from Harry's hands, he accidentally drops it to the floor.
I believe they
leading
said.
to
I believe he said there's a lot of beautiful women in Twin Peaks.
Probably, yeah. Very true.
Anyway,
And he's not the last to say it this episode, is he? As Pete takes the box from Harry's hands, he drops it to the floor, leading to a loud admonishment from Catherine. Butterfingers! So angry, like, said it like it's a swear word.
but that's how you open a drawer, Gabe. Didn't you know that?
Apparently. Only if it's a secret hidden drawer. Pete's bubbling seems to have done the trick, as the puzzle box is now open to reveal another puzzle box, which Pete instantly attempts to open by dropping it. I thought that was kind of funny, honestly. This one appears to be different, though. It's covered with symbols depicting the phases of the moon and the zodiac. Now it's dusk on the lake. Cooper and Annie are out there in a boat right in the middle of it, studying nature. Annie tells Cooper a little bit about her past growing up in Twin Peaks. She always enjoyed being in nature and was very introverted growing up. Fancy that. Cooper does seem eager to poke at the dark side, asking the hard questions and pressing Annie on whether or not her high school boyfriend was her reason for entering the convent. Jesus, Cooper. That seems kind of rude. But he's happy to allow her to redirect the conversation, which kind of ends up in that direction anyway. She's returned to Twin Peaks because she needs to face her fears, and life at the convent was just her running away from them. Yeah, that's fair. And good on her for realizing that. Cooper empathizes with her about the dangers of depression and leans in for a kiss. We're going to gloss over the fact about how Annie's 10-year depression is basically because of her high school boyfriend.
Yes.
I don't like that angle. That seems diminishing.
And the slits, the cuts on her wrists because she tried to kill herself.
Yeah, I mean,
and it's like it's all pretty hardcore.
Because of a high school boyfriend, come on.
And then right from that,
I mean,
into the kiss. Right from that into the kiss.
I guess it happens, but yeah, it's oof. I mean, you know, Cooper's willing to be vulnerable. We've seen that too. He's not going to be shy about his past with her, as evidenced with him discussing it with Audrey in previous episodes. But still, yeah, it's just like he's right for the jugular on this sort of stuff. It's like, you know, tell me your most awful memory, and that's how we'll get to know each other on our first date.
Well, Gabe, obviously they have to really, slam this couple together for the ending. The dramatic ending of where obviously this woman is going to be attacked or whatever.
They do have to ratchet up the attachment a little bit, don't they? Because we don't get much time together with them. Watching this, I've gotten a lot more perspective on how little or how much time certain plot lines got in the series. Like that was something that never really registered with me. It all kind of blurred together, and I was way off on a lot of it, to be honest with you. We'll talk a little bit about that more when we wrap up. But yeah, there was a lot of stuff that I remember being a way bigger part of the show that just really wasn't.
Good times.
It just, yeah, it feels like a big chunk of season two. I just kind of lump in with season one, maybe because like of the murder plot line, of the Laura's murder plot line, and just like everything before that and everything after that seems weirdly out of balance.
Hmm.
So, but anyway, that's neither here nor there right now. Anyway, Annie breaks the kiss off briefly just to confirm to Cooper that her instincts are saying to trust him, and they resume making out. We fade to a long shot of them in the boat and then returning the boat to the dock, holding hands as they continue to walk through the park. Then we cut to a fisherman with a pair of binoculars trained on them. That's right, it's Wyndham Earle. He lowers the binoculars and the camera zooms in on a half smile coldly crossing his face. Looks like he's found his fourth queen.
Didn't see it coming.
Yeah, not at all. I remember being really, really sad when I saw that episode, or that part of the episode,
Oh, really?
when I was a kid watching this.
Oh, no.
Just like, no! And then, like, the fact that it cut to commercial, like, just cut to black on, like, that really cold smile on his face with no music behind it. Really impactful to me at that age in those days. That one, that was kind of like, there was menace in that look to me when I saw it as a kid. So I didn't necessarily see as much of it this time, but I feel, yeah, I feel like a lot of the menace is mostly in his face rather than in his voice.
I think the fisherman outfit's fun too.
Yeah, it was.
He's caught what he was looking for, what he was fishing
Yeah,
for.
it's an apt analogy at this point. Let's lighten the mood a little bit and head back to the Great Northern, where Lana is helping distribute glasses for the wine tasting fundraiser. Dick commences the event with a highly cultured speech. Naturally, to clash with that culture, we have Andy and Lucy attending the event in the back, struggling with the terminology. Dick recruits Lana and Lucy to help him pour the samples for the guests, beginning with the red wines. Dick praises Lana's participation while discouraging Andy from his uncouth mannerisms. And we start to explore a little bit here the inherent silliness of a traditional wine tasting, which Andy subverts just a little bit by swallowing his samples. I feel like this particular kind of thing has been mined a lot for comedy in the years since, but I feel like this was probably one of the first ones to do it in such like a sarcastic fashion, to like look at, oh my god, how fucking pretentious is this bullshit. And I mean no offense to anyone listening who actually does enjoy wine tasting events, but like the amount of rules you have to follow for that sort of thing seems very, very silly to me. It's just, it's a level of gatekeeping, I guess, like people who tell you that you can't drink bourbon on ice or, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But, far be it for me to mock people for their rituals.
I just don't understand, again, the importance of this. Like, what? It just there's nothing
in relation to like the main plot.
Any of the plot. Like, this is just a unnecessary scene, really, in my opinion. I
would say it serves as comic relief. That might be its only purpose. But there's an awful lot of comic relief in this episode comparatively.
I was just like, and it's a long,
maybe a little too much,
and it's a long fucking scene. It's not like a short, haha. It's like
no, yeah, okay. And they split it into two parts.
Holy shit!
Yeah, this takes up a lot of real estate in this episode.
Like, what are we doing? And so it's like scenes like this, and they've had it throughout this series that aren't really that important. Like, you could have spent time on other character development or other things, but no.
Right. Like, we don't have any Norma or Ed this week. We don't have... Who else didn't show up?
Who I don't know. Who else?
I'm drawing a blank here at the second. I know there was more than them.
Some are dead.
Yeah. Some are still in the credits, even though they're dead.
We don't know what Audrey's doing. We probably don't ever.
No,
really...
she's in Seattle.
Well, I know
that's
she's
right.
in Seattle, but
Audrey
we
this
probably don't
week.
ever see that, do we?
No.
So that's irrelevant.
Yeah, that was just an excuse to write her out for a week.
Right. It's just like, who cares? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of this, it does just feel like quirkiness for the sake of quirkiness. You know, northern exposure-y kind of weirdness.
Mm-hmm.
Which in some aspects it works, but not necessarily with this collection of characters. Again, it's just it depends on how much you care about the characters, is how much mileage you're going to get out of this scene. You know, if you're a huge Andy and Lucy stan, then this scene is important to you.
I get that, but I feel like wasn't it last? It was the last episode we covered where, you know, Andy drops from the ceiling in the mountain climbing gear and then goes below, and that was a quick scene. It wasn't super long. It was funny and move on. This is just like, holy shit, what the.
I think it also serves as an excuse to get Lana on camera a little more.
Okay, cool.
But you know, she's kind of a one-dimensional character to begin with. There's not much depth you can add to her. Banana. At the Double R, Gordon Cole is enjoying a few slices of pie with Shelley, regaling her with tales of his heroic exploits in the FBI. This sure looks like a date to me. Cooper and Annie arrive to say their farewells as Gordon is getting ready to head home. He invites them to join him and Shelley for a couple more slices. Or more than a couple, as a waitress arrives with an armload of slices, as Cole continues to heap flattery upon Shelley. He kindly asks her for a farewell kiss, and she is all too happy to oblige right as Bobby walks in the door. Unperturbed and obviously unaware that Bobby is the boyfriend, Cole encourages the young man to take a closer look, because it's going to happen again, Sonny. And it does. Yeah, I would say that Cole treats Shelley...
Back-to-back comedy. Just a comedy show.
Yeah, we're here for the yucks, people. We've had enough murder for 1 week, right?
It is funny that they even had Lynch on this, because, like, they didn't really need to write him into this. The scene, like...
We've got some supplemental material to cover later that's going to go over that very subject.
I mean, it's nice to see Bobby get his, put in his
to
place.
Get shown up by a true gentleman. Yeah, I kind of like that. This was borderline creepy because, again, I mean, like looking at age gaps, we know that Stelly's only like 19, right?
Right.
And Cole's got to be in his 40s, give or take. So that's a bigger age gap than Mike and Nadine are dealing with. But, he's not impolite about it. I don't necessarily say that he gets consent, but you don't get the impression that Shelley is definitely into the idea.
Right.
So I think this was as polite as that sort of thing got 30 years ago. And this would have been considered progressive treatment in that day and age. Back to the wine tasting. 3 for 3. It's comedy. Where the bandage on Dick's nose has become an amusing shade of wine-soaked purple. Lucy continues to be unimpressed with the flavor guessing games and is obviously perturbed at Dick's favoring of Lana. Eventually, Lucy gets fed up enough with Dick's pretentiousness that she spits her wine in his face. Hey, she's pregnant. She's not supposed to swallow it.
That's right.
Meanwhile, Cooper is seated in front of the fire, a glass of warm milk in his hand. He is unexpectedly joined by John Justice Wheeler, sipping a whiskey, which looks suspiciously more like a beer, and announcing his presence with an abrupt, quote, "Love is hell." The two then have an amusing philosophical discussion, debating the pros and cons of the subject, ultimately settling on the agreement that it's all worth it and toasting each other to their luck. This really wasn't as bad as I expected it to be when it started. I have expressed my opinions on Billy Zane more than once in the run of this series, and
On the run up to
I've
this,
like,
yeah.
yeah, and I've softened my stance somewhat, given what I've seen. This conversation I thought was pretty well acted. I mean, it's a little bouncing back and forth of like, oh God, this sucks. It's not so bad. Oh God, this sucks. Not so bad.
Mhm.
Oh God, everything's, it all hurts. Yeah, it hurts. But, it's just a really good contrast between these two characters. And these guys are talented enough actors where they play it off very well. I mean, they're both supposed to be good guys, but very different styles of good guys. And you explore enough of their characters in just one conversation to see both sides of that.
Right. Yeah, I
So
mean, it's just like kind of a small character moment, really. Just
yeah,
kind of,
another one. But I feel like you get more out of this one than you do out of, oh, isn't Dick a pretentious asshole?
but like also not
Right,
important. Right.
right.
I don't know.
The bellhop approaches with a telegram for Mr. Wheeler, who very kindly tips. After reading the message, he stops the bellman to inform him that he will be checking out, offering Cooper a handshake as he exits the room.
Just going to Seattle.
Oh, yeah, is he though?
I don't know. I just.
Yeah, a little bit unfortunate that is the only scene that we will get with Kyle MacLachlan and Billy Zane together. I
Oh.
think they had some good chemistry there. I wonder if that's the only scene they've ever acted in together, period. Someone with more time on their hands, look that up for us. Now it's time for awkward family dinner at the Hayward house.
Yep.
Just Donna and the parents. Where the hell are all her sisters?
Super pissed off.
Not enough money in the budget to hire Alicia Witt this week?
No.
She was only 14. She had to be working for scale. Uh, After Eileen asks Donna to hand her the peas, Donna gets right to the point and asks her mom how she knows Ben Horn. Will immediately butts in, trying to spin that same tall tale about charity work that he previously plied Donna with. But she's not biting this time, making the snarky comment that one of the charities must have sent the roses to her mother. Eileen continues to act as if nothing is wrong at all, asking Donna about school and expressing her surprise that Donna has mentioned she's entering the Miss Twin Peaks pageant.
Mm.
Donna coldly suggests that she can use the scholarship money to study overseas, and Eileen and Will exchange worried looks. Ah, family secrets, man. Soap
Mm.
opera bullshit. Hated this plot line then. Not a fan of it now, but I can appreciate how well Lara Flynn Boyle is acting this part of her role. It's crap. It's crap material for Donna, but she does good stuff with it.
It's weird because there's like there's all these like subplots that have to do with the high school teenagers, but it's not like a teenager, soap opera like The OC or 90210. So you don't
Hmm.
really. It's just a weird show that way. Like it, I don't know. It's
Yeah, we really
bizarre.
do have a broad age range of characters in this one
Like some of this,
that get to take the spotlight.
like some of these subplots would be plots that you'd probably spend more time on, and other ones not. And I don't know. Honestly, I'm more interested in the the Donna thing than I am the fucking wine tasting, fucking any of
Right,
that
yeah.
shit. Like I
There's
just,
no intrigue involved in any of that.
it's like at least there's like some kind of stakes going on with Donna. But who knows? I don't know. It's weird. So it's a short scene. I guess we'll find out.
I
Maybe
guess.
not. I don't know. But I mean, they spend so little time with it, and then it's weird that all the teenage girls are just all in the Twin Peaks contest. It's just funny.
I don't think that's weird. I mean,
I think it is kind of.
remember that
There'd be at least that one girl who
in the minds of the
doesn't do
writers and the
it.
creators, but in the minds of the writers and creators, this is a town with a population of like 5,000. So naturally, all of the prettiest high school girls would be entering the pageant. And they've only got like one high school in town. So
Right, but it's also not all high school girls. But it's just
entering the pageant.
right. Well,
Oh,
Shelly's
yeah,
not
I
in high
guess we do
school,
have.
and I don't think Lana's in high school, is
And
she?
Lana's not. Nope.
So it's just like a random pageant, which is fine. I just think it would be funny if not all the young girls were in it. Like there would be one that's like, I'm against that or something. But that's not what they're doing here. What they're doing is everyone's just gonna do it. It's just weird to me.
Have the log lady out there in a bikini.
Ooh, baby. I mean, I don't see why not. Nadine's gonna do it.
That's true. Close up on a half moon,
Dude,
and
Norma
the
should be in
camera
it.
pulls away.
Does Norma do it?
Oh, Norma.
Does she not do it?
She does not do it.
No, there she is. There's the one lady that doesn't do it. Okay, anyway. Moving on.
I'm sure there's at least a couple more. Close up on a half moon, and the camera pulls away to once again reveal the silhouette of the hooded figure. It fades to black, and then to the owl. Night has fallen, and Cooper is summoned to a crime scene. The police have surrounded the gazebo in the park, in which a large crate with a brass ring and the words "Pull Me" written on it has been placed.
What could it be? It has to be a bomb.
It has to be,
Because
That's the only thing it possibly could be, right?
There's nothing that happened in this episode that could maybe be something else.
Well, Harry doesn't know that.
But we do.
Give the dude a break. For all he knows, it's something Josie left him, right?
It's true. Totally.
It's a puppy, She John Wicked him. Harry states the initial concern was that it was a bomb, but there is no ticking noise from within because bombs have to tick in the 90s. Cooper knows that Earl is behind this, but he has no idea what to expect from it. Earl has become unpredictable now. Cooper ties a rock to a section of police tape, which he then ties to the brass ring. Everyone gets behind one of the cruisers, and Cooper shoots the rock off the railing, which apparently generates enough force to yank the ring and open the box. It uncovers a grisly tableau. The corpse of the young rocker now become part of a gigantic black chess pawn. On a sign hanging around his neck, a chilling missive is written in a flowing script. Next time, it will be someone you know.
Dun, dun,
Roll
dun.
credits.
Dun, 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 dun.
Moida. Moida most foul.
My favorite Ted Raimi what is it? I can't even think of.
Get it out, Ian.
My brain is fried.
Roll
part is pawn number 1 in this episode.
Isn't he like the credit rock and roll youth?
Yeah, but I wish it would have credited him as pawn number 1.
Pawn number 1. I think they give the character a name in the next episode.
Oh, really?
Same as they do with the Drifter. But we'll have to wait and see.
That's funny.
So, yeah, I mean, I know you've got very little to add here. There's not much to take away from this one. Like you said, there was a lot of filler involved.
We get the relationship kind of solidified between the two lovebirds. Obviously, she's going to be the one that he wants to take away from Coop.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of get like that, the puzzle within the puzzle, kind of the code key for whatever maybe that's going to be used for. I don't know. And then the Major's going to get some files for Coop. I guess that could be important.
That could be important, yeah. I mean, I think we're starting to see that, like, Earl's main motivation right here isn't necessarily to punish Cooper, although that's a big desire of his. But, his number one thing is to get into the Black Lodge and claim the power for himself. Classic megalomaniacal villain.
So is that kind of code key thing? Is that a way of, like, deciphering to get into the lodge?
The petroglyph?
Yeah, the little box thing.
Oh, the box, the puzzle box.
Is that like a decoder of the heteroglyph? Or no? Has it nothing?
I feel pretty confident in telling you no.
Oh, so it has no point.
The puzzle box is, remember, that's something that Thomas Eckhart left behind.
But he was bringing it there for a reason, right?
I I can't really say much more than that. I
Mm.
mean, don't think of that as tied to the whole
Oh, that's
Black
too
Lodge
bad.
thing.
What a waste. What a waste then.
Yeah, Eckhart had nothing to do with the
No,
Black
but
Lodge.
like
He
that
was
could
just
have
there for Josie.
but that could have made the whole plot more complicated and more interesting. I don't know. I feel like
Yeah, it's you're going to be disappointed in how that turns out. I'm going to
sweet,
expect
sweet, you know.
because I know I was.
Cuz like you know, if this people for the land were interested, you know, and they wanted the glyph to get to the lodge and they're like all their they could have made it so much more in oh well. Oh well, you know,
Yeah,
that's why writing has gotten so much better in the
yeah.
what
Which yeah,
almost
it's
3
weird because
decades.
the puzzle box has a lot more to do with Andrew than it does with anybody else,
Mm, gotcha.
and we haven't seen him in a couple weeks, so
Gotcha.
it's hard to establish that. But
Gotcha.
I believe he returns next week to reassert his part in that
So that's just really its
particular
own
plot
other
line.
subplot that has nothing to do with the main plot.
Afraid so.
I'm so glad. So
Sorry to
glad.
spoil that one for you, gang.
So glad.
Had we had another season to work with, maybe that could have been deeper. But I mean, the way that that's written out, it's pretty obvious that that was the plan they had for the puzzle box all along. That was never really intended to have anything to do with
It's too bad it has
the Black Lodge or the
moons
White Lodge.
and
I mean, yeah, the moons and the zodiac symbols would lead you to believe that because some of them looked similar to what we saw in the cave, but they weren't the same, unfortunately. So yeah, a lot of nothing.
cool.
But you know, there's not much more room left for a lot of nothing because we've only got 3 episodes left.
What are you talking about?
But
There's
this
two.
week,
There could be 2 episodes of nothing, and then one episode just chock full of everything.
no,
No,
no, I wouldn't say. I'd say one more episode of nothing,
gotcha.
and then we get 2 pretty action-packed episodes with a lot of movement, some closure, but not a lot. But at least some endings and
Celebrations,
some some circles just continuing to circle.
good times.
But we do have a quite deep amount of supplemental material to go into this week.
Oh boy.
This one is the last episode on the current disc I'm working on with the box set. So traditionally, we use this opportunity to go over whatever bonus materials are on that particular disc. This one has a little interview grid, which was kind of interesting. It has a list of what do we have? 12 or 13 of the actors in the series, and it's got like 3 different little segments. It's got one called Origin, one called Production, and one called Legacy. So, like, you can just like bop through any of these. It's just got this fun grid layout that you can play with. You can play all the origins in a row. You can play all the actors segments in a row. A few of them are longer than just a couple of minutes, though. So, I've just got like 1 or 2 bits to take out of all of these. There was also a segment which they call crew interviews, which are slightly longer, good 4 or 5 minutes, and they're interviews with Jennifer Lynch and then several of the directors who helmed multiple episodes. That might be enough to save for next week. So we'll go through the actors first and see where we're running on time,
Okay.
how we're feeling, and then we'll go from there. So we start with Kyle MacLachlan. The origin tale we heard most of already in the supplemental materials we covered earlier, so we'll kind of skip over that. We'll move on to production, where he talks about Lynch writing himself into the show. Kind of as the way he talks about it is that, like, Lynch just loved the world so much that he wanted to participate within it from the inside and not just the outside, and Cole was his conduit for that. Kyle also implies that Lynch was a little bummed that he did not get an Emmy nomination for Best Supporting Actor.
What?
Well,
That's funny.
I think he was some of the funnier scenes in the show. He gets some fun stuff to work with. I mean, when you do look about the fact that Piper Laurie got a nomination,
Hmm.
And, aside from that one, like I said, the one speech she gives to Harry when she comes back is my argument for that nomination. But I really think it was mainly for the yellow face cross dressing.
Ugh.
So, maybe Lynch as a getting a nom wouldn't be such a bad thing. Uh, as far as legacy goes, Kyle, just basically none of them really understood like how they never expected Twin Peaks to echo like it has throughout the years. Is basically how he said that he refers to it as an echo. That's a sentiment that a lot of the actors share. It's just like none of us anticipated that this would have the legs that it did and that it would remain as popular today as it did back then.
That it would
So
spawn the epic podcast Blink as a Fart.
that's right.
There you go.
They walked so we could run.
That's right.
Next up is Machin Mick, Shelley Johnson. She talks about how she was just in from Reno. Again, I think these are some of the stories that we've heard from her already, but once before. She was cast in the Baywatch pilot the same week that she got Twin Peaks, and it was reading for the same casting director, who is Joanna Ray. She has worked with Lynch almost exclusive. Lynch has worked with her almost exclusively, I should say, but she's been around for decades and continues to work today. She did her table read with Eric DeRay, who is Leo. But they didn't read for Leo and Shelley. They read other parts. During production, the only thing she really mentions is that she kind of had to remember to be afraid of Eric when the cameras were rolling, because they got along great offset. He was apparently a really nice guy and cracked a lot of jokes and was always laughing. So very different from the character he ends up playing. I think Frank and Leo is a lot closer to his real personality than Coke dealer Leo was.
That's funny.
Coke dealer, kinky sex Leo. When she talks about the legacy of Twin Peaks, she just kind of talks about how like David Lynch has kind of become a touchstone for her in Hollywood. And when she gets sick of bullshit and politics that is, inherent in Tinseltown, she just calls him up and chats with him, and he helps her forget about that sort of thing and helps her remember that there are genuine artists left that are out there working.
Cool.
Next, we get Sherilyn Fenn, Audrey Horne, who we haven't heard from behind the scenes yet. She talks about being cast, and she was originally offered the role of Audrey, but in the pilot, there is not much Audrey in that script. So it was tough for her to get a bead on what this was all about and whether it was going to be something worth her time. She does say that her agent kind of questioned it as well. But it did grow into a much better role than she initially thought, given the material she was given in the beginning, and she got to expand it a lot and have fun with it. When it came to production, I'm going to give you a little bit of spoilers here. She refused to do a lot of the pageant stuff. Even though Audrey is written to be part of the pageant, she was like, nope, not doing a swimsuit, not doing this talent bullshit. I am not participating in any of it. In her own words, she says, I was probably being difficult, but David is cool, so he didn't care.
This is why I would have written her as just the anti-pageant girl. Why is that such a problem?
She does one segment for the pageant, which is her conservation speech. So she does an evening wear segment with that. She also talks about how she always preferred working with David as a director, and that a lot of his inherent talent for poking at the dark corners of humanity is what made the show weird. Like, that's where his weirdness comes from. And she says a lot of the other directors just did weird stuff for the sake of making it look weird. So, even the actors could recognize who was phoning it in and who was just, kind of like copying Lynch aesthetically rather than actually exploring the nuts and bolts of how he gets to those places visually. Yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about his style later. Kimmy Robertson in particular offers like a very weird analogy. Um, Sherilyn's take on the legacy is that Twin Peaks lasted for so long and was so popular because TV and film is starved for original ideas. And she was saying this in the 90s. And that Twin Peaks is very original compared to 90% of what you see on television, even today, is what she says. Fair assessment.
Sure, maybe.
I don't let me ramble too much. I mean, if you have reactions to these
I don't know.
statements,
I don't really. I
jump
mean,
in because I feel like a lot of this is just me reading and you nodding right now.
I'm sorry. It's a lot of that kind of stuff, like this content when they interview actors and stuff, is
Mhm.
as a kind of a director, and actors are just kind of full of themselves and they like to talk about shit and they're kind of pretentious and so like
Honestly, the director interviews sounded way more pretentious to
sure, no, I'm
me.
not saying that they're not either. Like I talk a lot.
Yeah,
It's just when you've seen a lot of this stuff, a lot of it tends to be the same, regardless of what it is. They're always
particularly when they are asked the same questions in
right,
the
right.
interview, which this is clearly coming from a template. So
So it's
yeah, and that very last, what do you think about the legacy? A lot of people are giving that same answer. So
I mean, sometimes it's, anything that's like kind of like sticks out and is more fun, but whatever. I mean, I don't mind. I don't really have anything to add about it though. Like I don't know David Lynch personally, so like I can't
right,
really.
yeah. Next we have Dana Ashbrook, Bobby Briggs. He was 18 when he broke into Hollywood, and Joanna Ray was a big fan of his. She got him to read for Amazing Stories like 10 or 12 times. He never landed a part.
Oh, weird.
But he did get to be friends with her son, Eric. That's right. Eric DeRay is the son of the casting director of the fucking show.
Yeah, fucking.
And apparently he helped a lot with the casting process. Like he's credited as an assistant casting director in
Like,
some of the episodes.
that stuff never happens, Gabe. No one can be related and work.
Nepotism in Hollywood? Perish the thought. But yeah, so they did a lot of reads together in those days, so they became friends. He was cast based on a generic headshot that wasn't even professionally done. It was just a friend of his taking a picture. He didn't read for the part. He just took a meeting with Lynch and Frost, and they said he was right for the role. The one advice that Lynch offered to him was, now, Bobby doesn't smile a lot. And Dana instantly understood. Mentioned something in production about there being an issue with a squeaking fan during a scene shooting that stopped squeaking mid-shoot, and they needed some raw audio to cover the scenes that didn't have it. So a cameraman just started squeaking his shoe against the floor, and they recorded that on the fly and looped it in post-production and made it work. And so he talks about how just like little changes like that on the fly were very strange, and he hadn't seen stuff like that previously in the work that he was doing, and it gave it a very organic feel. He also talks about how he thought the story with Bobby and Audrey was going to go a lot further, and that changes on the fly often happen to the script as well as shooting. He actually refers to that relationship as a MacGuffin at one point, which I thought was weird. I've never actually heard anybody use the term in an interview like that. He feels like it lasts through the years because of the realism that, a lot of Lynch's work has in it is like under the veneer, like what the terms he uses are like underneath the pretty well manicured grass is all the dirt and all the bugs, and Lynch shows you both of those things in his work. Next,
but it's not really a MacGuffin. It's more like a red herring.
Yeah, it didn't feel like he was using the term right.
Like a MacGuffin is a thing. It's a plot device.
I don't feel like I have the right to question
that has no purpose.
How he's in the industry at all.
Yeah, well,
Well, and in that effect, he's right. there's a little bit of flirting, and there's a little bit of talk of them working together, but it never really goes
But
anywhere.
that's more like a red herring. They're trying to like throw you off
Mm.
in a direction that maybe it's not going to go. Whereas a MacGuffin is like something you can't really explain. It's like it's the Maltese Falcon. Falcon. Like
Yeah.
that is
Or the Ark of the Covenant.
right. It's just like this thing that's like their relationship doesn't keep going. It just
Yeah,
anyway,
it just
anyway.
seems like it feels like a misuse of the word, or like maybe there are several ways to use that term,
Oh.
kind of like the broad ways you use the word gimmick in pro wrestling. But that's
Or he's young and
to
stupid.
each their own. He wasn't that young in that interview, but not sure if he's a Mensa guy or what. Gary Hirschberger, that's Mike Nelson, Bobby's bestie. He thought he was reading for Andy, who he refers to as the Weepy Sheriff. But he also didn't end up doing any reading when he went in. Just sat at his table with Mark and David, and they told him, "Hey, we think we see you as Mike, and this is what Mike is like, and this is the part you're going to play."
Mike has this an illegal relationship with this older lady. You up for it?
Right. I don't know if they pitched that at the casting. I think that came way later.
I know.
He does talk about during production that Lynch is not a guy who likes profanity. He doesn't cuss very much. And then he talks about the scene in the jail where he describes it as Lynch asked him if he'd ever been to the zoo, and if he'd ever been to the zoo, had he ever seen the monkeys barking at each other when they get riled up? And that was like what he told him to use as his inspiration for the scene in the prison where Bobby and Mike are hooting at James from across their cells. Legacy, uniqueness caught America off guard, unearthing character depth, whatever. Don't know where he was going with that.
It's that actor shit.
Some actor shit, yeah. James Marshall. That's James playing James. Lynch initially refused to see him because of his headshot, which he described as something out of Teen Beat magazine. Joanna wore him down eventually to see him, and it worked. He thought he was right for the part as soon as he got to talk to him. During production, he tells a story about how he was struggling with the specific scene where they're recording the song in the living room. They had done 9 or 10 takes, and they just weren't landing it. And like every couple of takes, Lynch would come up to him as if he was about to say something, but then he wouldn't say anything, and he would walk back, come back, and then he'd go back. And then finally, like after one particularly bad take, he comes over to him and like crouches down and like kind of like grabs the top of his hat and kind of like does this and goes, "James, let her rip." And then he just gets up and walks off, and the crew just kind of busts out laughing. And so, and James expresses it. He's like, it worked. It kind of broke the tension that had been building in the room, and then we nailed it in another 2 takes, and we were done.
Jesus.
So, it's. And then he also mentions that Twin Peaks is just as big in Europe as it was in the States, which is unusual for American television most of the time. We actually get a little bit of a segment with David Duchovny, which I thought was cool. He does confirm that the part was originally written for James Spader, who was unable to take it due to scheduling difficulties. And he brings up that trying to figure out, what's he going to do to show this in the audition. And he said that during his read, he brought a nail file and just kind of casually used a nail file to work on his nails while he was in character. So, I thought that was a neat little touch and definitely something that could add to the part. Then during production, he discusses how once he finally got into the costume, he really toned down the performance from like the stereotypical, really flamboyant kind of drag queeny thing that he had originally envisioned, because he definitely saw that a lot of the comedy was in the realism and the restraint of it.
Right.
He also mentions that while his episodes were airing, his father was in the hospital recovering from a quadruple bypass. He wasn't really able to speak, so he would communicate with his nurses through notes. And so when he was visiting his father in the hospital, he kind of looked down at the notepad that he'd been using to communicate with the nurses. And, he's reading this list of notes. He's like, yeah, my feet are a little cold. May I please have a blanket? I would like some water. My son plays a transvestite on television.
Oh boy, good times.
He's like, so the nurses probably thought he was hallucinating, but he was just trying to tell them the truth. And he talks about how, a lot of working with Lynch is organic. There's a lot of room for improv, and it's not really buttoned down, and it's a collaborative effort. He also talks about how Twin Peaks was able to strike a good balance between funny and scary in the days before even the X-Files were able to pull that off very well. We get Kimmy Robertson next. That's Lucy. She was given scripts for other characters, but nothing to read for, so she didn't read. She just, again, sat at a table with Lynch when they invited her in. And she was already a fan of his work, so she said she took that opportunity to ask him all the questions she wanted to ask, as well as all the questions her friends, other Lynch fans, wanted her to ask him.
That's funny.
She talks about working with Lynch as he reaches down your throat and pulls out a scene from your guts, and he's like, here it is, and it's all slimy, but it's ready to go, and it's honest. And it was just a fascinating description of working with him. She, a little bit more of a spoiler, she does a dance number for the pageant, which people would come up to her afterward and be like, weren't you worried that you were going to hurt the baby? And in another tale of dumb actors not understanding, or dumb fans not understanding that actors aren't actually the characters they play. She said she got tired of explaining that she wasn't actually pregnant and then just making up stuff like, oh, I have a uterus of steel, or
Oh my god, people.
things of that nature. Yeah. The only note
So
I
she's
took
in the
down
pageant
from
too,
that-
huh?
She is, yes.
Oh my god.
There's a note here about legacy of art versus entertainment. I forget specifically where she was going with that, but again, just that's why Twin Peaks was important, is because it was art. It wasn't just like cookie cutter TV, which, again, that's a sentiment that a lot of them are repeating.
But you see a lot of cookie cutter TV in it, so I don't know. I mean, I get
Yeah,
at
but
the
those
time.
are the least interesting segments. Those are the ones that kind of feel forced.
I guess at the time, but maybe I don't know.
Yeah. Next, we have Don Davis. That's Major Briggs. Again, didn't read, just talked. He bonded with Lynch over fishing in the Ozarks, which is where he was from. He mentions that during their initial meeting, one of the casting directors tried to encourage Lynch to start the dialogue read, like, hey, we got other actors to read. Lynch was like, nah, we got him. This part's filled. He said the only thing he asked him that what might be necessary for the part was, can you cry on cue? And yeah, he was like, no problem. He talks about there was a specific scene which we can't discuss now because it hasn't happened yet. But during the shooting of it, he accidentally let out a gigantic and noxious fart.
Nice.
Which apparently permanently offended a PA that he had previously been kind of close to, but who would never chat with him in a friendly manner or look at him the same way again. And he laments the fact that a friendship ended over a fart.
That's the second fart story I've heard in a couple weeks with actors. There was this one where I think it was on Men in Black 2 with Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones. They were in this car upside down or some shit. And
oh yeah.
And ripped the fart. And they had to quit.
Yeah, and then there's the Usual
break.
Suspect story.
No, I don't know that one.
You don't know that one?
No.
The lineup scene?
I remember
the reason they're all laughing was because Benicio del Toro farted on every take.
No.
You never heard that story?
No.
Oh wow. I figured a film buff like you would have known that one.
I'm not really a big fan of that movie, so.
Oh.
I've seen it like
Interesting.
once, and it didn't really take. I don't know. Weird.
That's going to lead to a whole other discussion later.
But then
But we'll save that
I
for
don't
off
really feel
camera.
bad about it because Bryan Singer's a fucking douchebag. So
He is a douchebag.
anyway.
You know, generally when a person's first movie is their best one, they're not a good person or a good director. Where do we move on to? Don Davis mentioned something about the legacy is that the conventions are also really kind of like reunions for the cast because they really enjoyed working together and they enjoy seeing each other again. And a lot of them will do those conventions just on, room and food and, won't ask for payment for them. They just do it for the fun of it because they love the community.
That's cool.
Yeah, I like that.
I wonder how many people are really not getting paid because some of those actors are not working, and
Well, a lot of them are dead now.
there's also that.
There's also that.
Also,
We get an interview with Mary Jo Deschanel,
oh,
who plays Eileen Hayward,
okay,
Donna's mom. She says that in the beginning, she kind of toyed with the idea of Eileen's disability being all mental, being psychosomatic. And that it was, somehow tied to guilt for whatever she did talk about, like maybe a car accident in the backstory, and then she, asked questions to Lynch and Frost about that, and they were both kind of ambivalent. They didn't really have a backstory in mind for her. That's something we get. I haven't mentioned that in detail, but that's again a common refrain that you heard from the actors is when they would come at them with very specific questions, they would be like, "Oh, that's a really good question," but then
right,
not take it any farther than that and kind of leave that sort of stuff in the actors' hands,
right.
as opposed to just like giving them this very linear path to follow. They kind of gave them some room to
I
fill in those blanks themselves, and in some cases that works very well. In some cases, it doesn't always work out so well.
I have a question, and I don't know if we've
Mm-hmm.
talked about this in any of our drunken after talks, but uh, if Frost and Lynch were able to finish this season the way they wanted to, would Laura's killer be revealed at the end of this season? Like at the end, or would they keep mining this for longer and longer?
I don't think they ever would have revealed the killer if they wanted to.
Like ever? They were never
If
going to.
yeah, I think at least Lynch in particular. I don't know for sure about Frost, but I'm fairly certain that Lynch would have preferred to just never expose who the killer was, and then just let that mystery linger throughout the run of the entire series.
So has there been
I don't know
talks?
how
Oh,
feasible that idea would have been,
so were there talks of
particularly.
how? What? Like, is there any kind of ever been talks about like what then the show would have looked like then? Like, or that's just is just that doesn't
I
exist.
really don't think Lynch had any interest in doing a season three. I think had they made a season three, Lynch probably would have left the show.
Hmm.
I think he was really, really unhappy working on the show. He didn't. If it had it had become commercially successful, he would have had less and less input on the show as it went on.
Well, even in season 2, do you think the plots would have been different then? Like, have they
If he'd
talked
have
about?
spent more time on it,
Yeah, do you think have they talked about like what those plots might have been if?
there is a long list of stuff that he rewrote for the final episode. Um, so that might offer a deeper clue as to like what storylines he favored.
Okay,
I mean,
that's fair.
obviously we can't go over that
Right.
list now, but yeah, reading it the way I did, it definitely gives you some insight as to, where the writer's room was trending and where Lynch was trending. And they were definitely very different directions at that stage.
Gotcha. I'm just curious about that. That would be my anyway. Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Frost, I think, was way more about the people and the place and the reality of it, where Lynch was about what's on the other side of the fabric of that reality.
Right. Like would
That's
there
where his
like
interest was.
like would there even be lodges? Lodge with black and white
If
lodges.
he had no input, probably not.
I got you.
I'm 100% certain that was Lynch's
thing.
baby
Okay.
from the beginning.
Gotcha.
Mary Jo Deschanel. Yes, during production, she just talks about how she was selling her house in preparation for the role. So, like, people would come to look at the house, and she would be in the wheelchair, practicing in the wheelchair, and just moving around the house like that, and then just kind of after a time, just standing up from the wheelchair and walking around while these potential buyers were in the house. And freaking them out because they thought she needed the wheelchair. And she didn't, this is just her doing her thing. She doesn't think anything of it. And it, didn't mean much to her, but she understood why it would freak them out. Legacy stuff, yeah, just generic about it being unique and influential, blah, blah, blah.
We've heard it all before.
We've heard it all before. Next, this one was fascinating. Lenny Von Dolan. That is Harold Smith.
Harold?
The agoraphobic.
Oh, Jesus.
Who raised the orchids. Yeah,
Right,
haven't
right.
seen him for a while.
Well, he's also dead.
Yeah. But he gave an insightful interview. He auditioned for Joanna and for Leslie Linklater. And he ad-libbed a little bit during that audition, which ended up actually making it into the final episode. But he's pretty sure it was that little ad-lib that got him the part. He knew from the beginning that Harold had a beginning and an end to his character, so he says he knew he had bookends to work with. He talks about a story I think we already told when the episode aired about how the night before the shoot he came up with the idea of, maybe we have the hissing gas and we just kind of slowly pan up on a bunch of wilted orchids and then Harold's feet. And Lynch calls him back because, they'd already had the setup for the hanging and everything. So he calls him back and told him, Harold, never come up with a good idea the night before a shoot. His response to the legacy is that anything that evokes a strong response, whether a positive or negative response, is good art. And there's no middle of the road with Twin Peaks. Generally, people love it or hate it, so he interprets it as good art. Charlotte Stewart is next. That's Betty Briggs, Bobby's mom, the Major's wife. She and David Lynch go way back. She actually worked on Eraserhead, and she was a live-in girlfriend of Jack Nance, who is Pete Martell, when they were casting for the pilot. So Jack had already been cast, and they were having a birthday party for David Lynch at Jack and Charlotte's house. And during this party was when Lynch and Frost approached her and let her know that they were considering her for the role of Betty Briggs.
Oh, cool.
She mentions that during production that they never got full scripts. They just got their roles, so they were just as in the dark as everybody else as to how the rest of the episodes would turn out. So the cast will all get together and watch them at bars or at various people's houses. She mentions that they had a spaghetti dinner at Dana's house for the season 1 finale, and that every one of them freaked out when Cooper got shot. As to why Twin Peaks was so popular and enduring, her quote was, TV was boring. That's basically how she explains it. TV was boring, and that made it stand out because it wasn't boring sometimes. And our last actor interview is with Robin Lively. That's Lana Milford, sister-in-law to Deadpool. And I don't know her from anything else besides Karate Kid 3. No, there was something else. What else was she in?
We did look this up, I think, already.
Yeah. I think there was another thing that we should all know that she was in that we didn't remember.
I thought we brought it up.
No? Yeah. Anyway, she talks about how, she was a relative latecomer to the series, and she was quite intimidated by how beautiful all of the other women on the show were. I mean, that's quite a crowd to be coming into. So she felt like she had to come up with something in order to stand out from the rest of them, and that's why she developed Lana's Southern accent. So she read the audition like that, and she was like, they're either going to love it or they're going to hate it. And they ended up loving it and became part of the character.
Good job. Good
Her
job.
story is once again about a scene they wanted for the pageant. Something about contortionist jazz erotica, which was all it said in the script.
Oh boy.
And she just said, that's beyond my skills. As to why Twin Peaks endured, you couldn't figure it out. In simple terms, I mean, that's kind of why it endured for me, is because I just puzzled over what the hell any of this shit meant.
I mean, I don't think the writers could figure it out. So,
They weren't entirely certain, were they?
all
All right. Well, yeah, we got plenty of time, so I'll go ahead and move on to these director interviews.
right.
We do start with Jennifer Lynch, who is very much her father's daughter, right down to the ever-present cigarette. Really, her only discussion is about how she was recruited to write the novel, The Secret Diary of Laura Palmer.
Mhm.
So she kind of discusses how she got close to the character under that job, and how she was the first person that David and Mark revealed the identity of the killer to.
Oh, fun.
Um, so she says that she got to a lot of creative freedom writing the book. She mentions that there were two things in the book that she took from her own life, but there's one that she won't tell. The one that she will tell is there's a dream that Laura discusses where she's trapped in a room with a rat and she's worried that the rat is going to bite her foot off. So she bites her own foot off before the rat can do it.
Good times.
Yep. Mrs. Tremont is a character that appears in the novel, but you didn't see much of her in the series. She saw her purpose as serving as a potential redemption for Laura, since she was part of the whole Meals on Wheels program. That was Laura's chance to continue to prove that she was a good person. Well, it was a much deeper discussion than I made notes on here. So the directors that we get to talk to, all of whom except one directed multiple episodes. Unfortunately, none of them are Leslie Linka Glatter. The first person we talk to is Todd Holland. Todd Holland directed 3 episodes. I'm sorry, he only directed 2 episodes. He did season 2, episode 4, which is the episode where Leland confesses to Jacques' murder, and we meet Judge Sternwood and have courtroom in the roadhouse. He also does episode 13, which is the one where Andy and Dick break into the adoption agency.
Yeah.
So Todd Holland basically is a close friend of Leslie Linka Glatter. They worked together on Amazing Stories, and he followed her to Twin Peaks, and he basically follows her to pretty much any show she works on. So I'll recommend him for a job directing, and he'll get it because he's, pretty good. He was a big fan of season 1. He asked Mark Frost a lot of very specific questions that apparently only he ever got answers to. A lot of the remainder of the crew was just like, wow, he never told that stuff to anybody. He talks about how he was the one who came up with the idea of the shot where you kind of zoom out from the tunnel of that tile and the opening of that episode with Leland in the interrogation room. He says the script was basically like you just kind of start on Leland's face, and he didn't know where he was going to go with that. So he used one of his favorite techniques was to go to the set and just kind of like sit from the perspective of that character. So he sat in the chair that Leland was sitting in and was just staring at the wall and just kind of came up with the idea from that little experience. And so he pitched it to Mark, knowing it was going to be an expensive thing to shoot, but they happily approved it, thought it was cool, and approved the increased budget for it. So
What did I? That's
he
episode
also
4.
talks about, yeah. He also talks about how the story required patience to follow. He has trouble describing the sentiment he wants, which he just kind of says is anti-MTV, but I know what he's talking about. like in that early to mid 90s is really when MTV started what I would call short attention span theater,
Right.
which was just, really quick cuts, really short, punchy sentences, and just like never really giving you a chance to focus on what was going on. Just, hyperactivity bleeding into production. So, yeah, I get what he was talking about there. Next, we have Caleb Deschanel. 3 episodes out of him. Season 1, episode 7. That's the one where Cooper comes home to find Audrey in his bed, and also the one where she starts working at the perfume counter. In season 2, he directs episode 8, Drive with a Dead Girl. That's where Whelan is hauling Maddie's body around, and that's also the appearance of Lucy's sister. Lastly, he gets season 12, episode 13, The Black Widow. And that's the one where Dougie Milford dies in the act of love. Nadine starts on the wrestling team, and Cooper discovers Dead Dog Farm.
Oh, yes.
So Caleb knew David Lynch from the AFI. Mary Jo was cast before he was ever hired to direct an episode, and he'd never actually done TV before. He'd only ever done film or commercials. Ben and Jerry's flashback with Louise Dombrowski dancing in the flashlight was his idea. He talks about how Lynch encouraged directors to come with ideas, and again, it was an organic, collaborative process, just like with the actors. He feels like most of the series remained loyal to Lynch's vision, and that the reason Lynch's characters stand out is because they're all based somewhere in reality. Yeah, he was stuck mostly with producing, I think, after Twin Peaks, if I remember right. He wasn't really like a lot of these people weren't known specifically for directing. Like Dwayne Dunham, who's the next interview, was mainly an editor.
Well, even like the director of this episode we saw tonight, he's directed very few things.
Chiefly a producer. Yeah.
And
produced TV episodes.
And he produced like Elephant Man and anyway, so
yeah, you kind of get the feeling he just did an episode as a favor.
Right.
Next we have Dwayne Dunham. That's our Lucasfilm guy. He met David Lynch working on Blue Velvet as the editor. He was instantly hooked when he read the script for Northwest Passage, as it was known at that time, even though David Lynch would refuse to tell him who the killer of Laura Palmer was.
He's also an editor of a lot of the episodes, right? This guy?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. And the pilot in particular. So, yeah, he would tell Dwayne, don't worry about the details. Let's just go out there and shoot this movie and have some fun. They're giving us all this money to play around with. We won't get this opportunity again. He points out that he was a good choice for being the director of the first real episode. Oh, yeah, we didn't get over that. He directed the first regular season episode. He also directed season 2, episode 11, Masked Ball. That's where Cooper finds out he's suspended, James meets Evelyn, and Denise makes her first appearance. And he did our most recent episode, The Wings of Love. But yeah, because he edited the pilot, he was a good choice for that first episode because he knew the characters better than anyone besides David and Mark at that point. His specific scene that he mentions is he was the one who encouraged Richard Beymer to ad-lib during the scene where Ben Horne is watching the old movies on the projector. So yeah, Richard ad-libbed the whole finger puppets. He ad-libbed the part where he walks up to the screen to kiss his mom. All of that just came out of the moment. And he thought that was probably Ben Horne's best scene in the whole series. Just the whole pathos of this just regression to childhood when he's mentally breaking down. He's just going back to this happy place he was in when he was an 8-year-old. And I kind of agree with him. I really think that was a powerful scene for someone who is clearly losing their shit. Next interview we get is with Stephen Gyllenhaal, who directs the next episode that we get to see. So I can't give you any more details than that. He talks about how all of Lynch's work is deeper than or beyond logic. It's more than that. It enjoys being subversive. He loved being on the set because he loved hanging out with the actors. He's pretty harsh in his assessment of some of them. He doesn't mention any of them by name, but he's like, there were some brilliant actors on the show, and there were some that were not so great, but they were so good for their parts. And just
Mm-hmm. Or just not so good and not so good. But hey, not looking at you, Leo.
Mr. Nippo baby. He describes the process as David's ideas are bubbling underneath and the actors are on the surface. Some of them could tap into what was going on underneath. Others could not. Others were completely lost. He tells a story about one actor in particular who he doesn't name. He refers to them as vain and weird, but right for the part. There were really only two people I thought of for that one. One of whom is the actor who plays Dick. And again, I can't remember his name, but we'll go back to that at some point. And the other one was Billy Zane. I don't know. I'd hate to think that he thought Kyle MacLachlan was vain and weird, but hey, could be wrong.
Could be.
The last interview we get is from Tim Hunter, director of The River's Edge. He directed 3 episodes as well, one in season 1, which was The One-Armed Man. That was where we get our interview with Jacoby, the snorting llama in the vet's office, and tea with the log lady. He also directed season 2, episode 9, Arbitrary Law, which is the episode where Bob and Leland are revealed as the killer to everybody. And he's caught, and then Leland dies, blah, blah, blah. And his 3rd episode is the second to last episode. So no spoilers from that one. He really did not offer much in the way of decent insight. I have the least amount of notes from him. He's also someone who knew David Lynch from the American Film Institute. That's where their background was. They weren't necessarily friends, but colleagues. He mentions that any special effects that were done on set. There wasn't much in the way of post-production on this show. The best way that he has to describe David Lynch's work is that he makes ordinary things resonate in a dark way.
Okay.
Which,
sure,
kind of poetic. But yeah, we didn't get much good material out of him as opposed to the other directors that we had there. So yeah, the one of those interviews that interested me the most was the Todd Holland one, where he talks about that process of coming up with that unique shot. It makes me want to go and look at his work a little deeper and see what else he's done, and kind of see if I can figure out what other unique flourishes he's established.
I don't remember what else he did. I know we've looked at everyone's stuff. I just forget who's doing what.
Well, now that we're done with my notes here, I'm going to go ahead and open up IMDb and let's find Todd Holland right now. You're probably faster than I am.
I'm decibels. I'm not even looking. I'm just staring off. We've had 4 people.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so this was the guy that got into comedy. He did The Wizard.
Oh, yeah, baby.
And then subsequently got into comedy television. Did several episodes of Malcolm in the Middle.
Oh, right.
Did a couple of episodes of Kimmy Schmidt, which is one of my all-time favorite comedies. So yeah, this is a guy whose work I admire greatly.
The guy that did The Wizard.
A guy that did The Wizard.
California.
But yeah, his interview I thought was the best one. It felt the most informative as to an actual input into his thought process, doing the work and being there.
That's cool. I feel like a lot of there is the 2 different types of directors. Ones that will just not really say much, and then others that will just say a lot.
Mm-hmm.
What else is this?
Yep. Some who communicate and some don't.
Because it's their job to communicate visually, Gabe.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
Quick peek at the ratings here. This was the steep drop.
yeah.
So let me confirm real quick. But I believe this was because we're a couple weeks removed from the return to Thursday nights. So yeah, this episode aired on April 11th, 1991, and yeah, we saw a pretty steep drop in the ratings, going down from a 9.2 to a 7.9, losing a little over 500,000 viewers. Remember, they're up against Cheers at this point. But yeah, they'd only get one more week in that slot before they were pulled from the schedule completely, with the last two episodes being combined to air as a movie of the week in mid-June.
Nice.
Not with a bang, but a whimper. Yeah, there was no real trivia specific to this episode. Nothing extra to go over here. The log lady thing was just all about pie and all about how she hopes Norma likes her. Yeah, nothing, like no hidden messages in that one. That was
funny.
just like
Pie in the sky, baby.
Lots of pie in this episode, dude.
Lynch and pie. Yeah.
Lynch and pie.
Huh. Coffee
and pie.
I didn't even see the
massive quantities.
The David Lunch. The coffee mugs. I haven't seen those in forever. The angular ones.
Oh yeah, the weird coffee mugs.
I haven't seen those in a lifetime.
It's been several episodes since those turned up. I didn't really think to look for them at any of the scenes in the diner.
I didn't notice them.
It would stick out for you, wouldn't they?
Mm-hmm. Need to go antique shopping and see if I can find some angular coffee mugs.
I think I actually saw some when I was out with my brother. I might be wrong about that. All right, so a little look at next week. Overall episode number 27 is known as The Path to the Black Lodge. We get a little more information, blah, 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 blah. This is not a good place for that summary. That's far too detailed of a synopsis. I'm going to have to read too much of it and make too much sense.
That's all right.
So where's Todd? Where's Todd in his resume? Oh, fuck it. I'm just going to search for Twin Peaks. Oh, damn it.
Peaks.
Episode guide, season 2, episode 20.
Thanks to the 4 people that came by and said hi.
Our IMDb. Did we have people come by and say hi?
Well, they didn't say hi, but that's how many people have come by and watched it. Secretly.
Secretly watching it.
Secretly watching it. Under the sheets.
Silently watching and judging. So yeah, next week, Bobby and Shelley reaffirm their love. Cooper calls Shelley, Donnie, and Audra to get Shelley, Donna, and Audrey together to warn them about Earl. Briggs shows Cooper a tape of Wyndham Earl making a report on his quest for the Black Law. Sounds like spooky stuff is afoot. So, in the meantime, feel free to comment on any of our social media posts, which you'll find on mostly Instagram and Facebook. Fuck Twitter, and I'm really kind of staying off of Threads, especially during election season.
Hey, you can also leave comments on the old YouTube. You know, I have chats on the YouTube, so you can watch the video and say hey.
You can like it, share it, subscribe to our channel, to Ian's channel.
Yeah.
The Milkman Pictures channel, and you can get updates all the time whenever I feel like posting them.
Or try.
We've also got that email account that we never check. That's blankasafartpod@gmail.com. We check it so frequently I forgot what the fuck it was. But yeah, feel free to drop us a line on any of those forums. We love to hear from our fans and our listeners and our detractors, just so we can talk shit back to you.
Just anything.
Anything you want to add. We love hearing from you.
And hope you enjoyed
Even
the
on the old
episode.
episode.
Hope you enjoyed the episode, Aunt Linda.
Yes. Love you. Heal soon. And we'll see you at Christmas. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for me.
And
Wrapping
me.
it up for you, Ian.
I guess so.
All right, folks. Thanks for tuning in. As ever, let us smile, be your umbrella, and we'll see you next time. Take care.